And good Thursday morning. This Thursday, October 10th, 9 a.m., and we have chatting with the candidates. And today we are focused on Newport School Committee. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been chatting with candidates from Newport School Committee as well as Newport City Council. Today actually wraps up our interviews with Newport School Committee candidates. And then tomorrow we will finish wrapping up with Newport City Council candidates. I think we have chatted with all but one in each of the races. All of the interviews as we publish them. As we conclude them, are published on whatsupnoop.com. You can go and watch them. You can go and read about the interview. We do a little summary recap. And then in our newsletter, we also provide audio for each one. So if you're on the go and you just want to listen to it while driving or running or whatever else you're doing and want to listen to political candidates chatter, all can be found on our newsletter as well. Today we are on Newport School Committee, and incumbent James Dring joins me. James, how are you?
Good, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I think you were the first, but we had some tech issues, and now you're the last, which is okay.
Yeah. So you saved the best for last. Thank you.
That's it. That's it. James, this is I'm losing my mind a little bit here. You are wrapping up your first term or second term?
No, this is the end of my second term.
Second term. Okay. Yeah. Years fly by. You are a COVID electee.
I was. Yep. When I was elected, I don't believe the kids were not even in school at the time. And then we went to like a hybrid.
Yeah.
And I remember I actually was one of the people on the school committee when I first got on, was really pushing to get the kids back into school because that hybrid model was just not working. You know, there were kids sitting in front of their computers all day. There were some kids that disappeared. We're still at this point in time, still suffering really from how far behind kids got back during COVID. You know, it came out with discipline problems. You came out with kids that, you know, were way behind. So we've been really playing catch up for the last couple of years. So it's been a little challenging.
Yeah, I was talking about it with somebody else yesterday where I don't know if we really defined when it ended. And I don't know how long it's going to take before we know how long the impact's going to be. It might be 20 years from now where we're like, oh, that set us back 5 years.
Yeah, I don't think we really know for a while.
Yeah.
But, you know, but things are starting to fall into place. You know, I think, you know, the kids have been back in school for a couple of years. So,
yeah.
Hopefully that's all behind us.
For those who don't know you, why don't you just reintroduce yourself to maybe first-time voters or those who haven't voted in the past?
Well, thanks, Ryan. You know, my name's James Dring, and as Ryan was saying, I've been on the school committee for 2 terms, so this will be a 3rd term if I'm lucky enough to be reelected. As far as myself, I was born in Newport. You know, some people say that's a good thing. Some people say it isn't. I don't really know. I guess the jury is still out. But I've been here for most of my life. I've moved away a few times, you know, and I've always moved back because Newport, as anybody really who's paying attention or is going to listen to this interview, you know, Newport's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise your family. And I believe it's a great place to send your kids too. But I did move back. You know, my oldest daughter was young. And, you know, I'd have 3 kids that were in the school system. You know, I say were in the school system because my older daughter graduated from Rogers in 2022. And I have a freshman at Rogers currently, and I have a junior at Rogers. I have 3 daughters.
Ooh, yeah.
So, yeah. So I have 3 teenage daughters right now. So life's a little stressful. I'm lucky that I still have any hair left. But it's all good. But once I came back into Newport, I did get right back into being involved in the community. I was on the planning board. I ended up becoming the chairman of the planning board before I got off. I'm currently the chairman of the Mantonome Park Commission. You know, we're charged with, you know, basically keeping Mantonome Park open space, you know, keeping it maintained, taking care of the tower, make sure that the tower is okay. So that's what I've been doing. And obviously I'm also on the school committee. So I am pretty busy, but I'm focused on my family first and really on the community. I love Newport. I don't really plan on going anywhere. You know, maybe when I retire, I'll get on somewhere warm for a month or 2, but I'm not gonna be leaving Newport. So I'm here for the long term.
As if it wasn't busy enough having 3 daughters, teenagers, and serving on the school committee, also serving on a commission. Where does that passion to donate your spare time and your resources and your very limited private time back to the city?
Well, it's a good question because one thing, you know, I don't think a lot of people realize about the school committee, it does take a lot of your time. There's no doubt about it. The park commission is for me is relatively easy. It's right down the street. I live on Dudley Avenue, so I walk down there once or twice a week, walk through the park, walk through the tower. We have meetings when maybe once a quarter we get together, talk about what's going on in the park. One of the things I was happy about is we've really opened the park up to Pell School. So Pell School, so I sort of, because I'm on the school committee, obviously that was an easy transition. And to talk to people at Pell came to me and asked me, hey, can we use the park? Like, absolutely, brought that to a meeting, said, they do bring the kids down there all the time, but primarily at the end of the year, they do the end of the year festival down there, and they have bouncy houses and all that stuff.
Oh, cool.
So that was helpful, actually, being on the park commission for that.
Yeah, and when it came to your decision to run again for re-election, what played into that? How easy of a decision was it to make?
To be perfectly honest, I took a while to make my mind up whether I was going to do it again. The primary reason that I stepped back into it again is, I have two kids in the system. I've got my two daughters at Rogers. I've got boots on the ground. I hear what's going on sometimes, and I'm able to reach out and say, hey, is this true? This is what I heard. This is what my kids are telling me. And I'm sort of passionate about the schools. My daughters, they were at Pell. I had daughters at Pell, Thompson, and Rogers. They worked their way up through the system. And I believe in the Newport Public Schools. I really do. And you hear a lot of bad publicity sometimes. And I can tell you, Ryan, it's not, most of what you hear is not true. My kids are having a very good experience at Rogers. My daughter graduated, like I said, 2 years ago. She had a great experience, and so did her friends. They loved Rogers. My two daughters there, they love it. My daughter is a freshman. She did not go to Thompson, so she kind of transitioned to Rogers rather. She was pretty nervous about it, to be honest. And she came home after like the first week. So I said, hey, so how is it? She's like, Dad, I love it. Everybody's nice there. The teachers are great. My dad was a teacher, and he was in the educational system for like 30 years. When he retired, he was the principal of Thompson. So I've been hearing, I know teachers, I've heard about teachers. My dad's mostly just friends with teachers. So I've sort of been incorporated into the school system just by graduating myself and by being involved, even through my dad, listening to his story. So, pretty passionate about it. And I think I bring to the school committee, I bring a fresh perspective. And I say that because I'm pretty level-headed. I make good decisions. I have common sense. If something makes sense, I vote for it. And if something doesn't make sense, I vote against it. I don't bring like a national political agenda to my school committee meetings. I just sit there and I try to make sense of what's going on and make the best decisions. And that's what I've been doing. And I think so far, it's worked. We obviously have challenges. But so far, I think we've had a successful 2 years. But we just the next term is going to be interesting, to say the least. We have stuff to work on for sure.
Yeah. Before we move forward, I'll just go back for the last 2 terms. And, what are some of the big decisions that come to mind, or what are you proud of, or what do you think was missed?
Well, I know, Ryan, I ran 2 years ago. I was the only person on the school committee, the only one who was in favor of regionalization. We had
now everybody is.
Now everybody is, right. But to be perfectly honest, was it perfect? Absolutely not. But a lot of people on the school committee, they'll say, oh yeah, we're in favor of regionalization, but they voted against it. That was a good opportunity because, and what I hear is, well, it wasn't perfect. There wasn't going to be one high school. There wasn't going to be this. There wasn't going to be that. Nothing is perfect. We are never going to have a proposal that comes in front of the voters that is perfect and say, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to vote for this. It's not going to happen. That's not the way it happens. But we would have had one school committee made up of people from Middletown and Newport. And that school committee would have had to make decisions. And you have to have faith that they're going to make the right decisions. And that school committee could have made a decision to maybe put middle school kids down at Rogers, put the high schoolers at the new high school, because it makes, the new high school in Middletown, it makes no sense. And everybody feels comfortable saying this, I think. No sense to have 2 high schools within walking distance of each other. It's nuts. So that school committee could have made decisions that brought us to one school. Now we don't have that option. It doesn't exist. Maybe at some point in the future, I know there's still whispers going on behind the scenes of trying to put something together. But that was our best, and I think our last best opportunity to regionalize, because we've been hearing about that since I was a kid, and I think that was a huge missed opportunity. I mean, we would have gotten about $46 million from the state that we could have leveraged to finish Rogers instead of going after the taxpayers for it. We would have had the money. We would have been able to have more programs, because everybody who's been paying attention to anything going on in the schools knows our enrollment is declining. I saw the demographics projection for the next 10 years. We're going to lose 400 more kids. There's about 400 more kids over the next 10 years. So we're going to be down to about 1,400 kids. You're talking maybe 400 kids or less at Rogers, 300 kids at Thompson. And the one thing that goes along with that is the state gives aid to the cities based on student population. So we're going to be up against a fiscal cliff. So again, we missed a huge opportunity. And the other thing about me being, the only person that was in favor of that, it shows my independence, it shows my open-mindedness. I'm not a member of like a monolithic school board where I'm going to vote the same way as everybody else. I can think for myself, and I was able to dissect that and say, you know what, it isn't perfect, but I think it's the best solution to our short-term problems.
Yeah, one of the things I'll actually clarify. I joked that everybody is now in favor of regionalization. It's come up in the other 9 interviews, and overall, I feel like candidates might be seeing the writing on the wall with declining enrollment. That eventually, and these are my own words, you might not have the choice about regionalization. The decision might be made for us.
I believe that the only way it's going to happen, truthfully, is exactly what you just said. The state's going to step in and say, you guys have to do this. How they're going to do that legally, I don't know. But I do know the 9 people say they're generally in favor of it. But I guarantee you, if there was a plan put on the table tomorrow and said, this is what we want to do, I guarantee most of them would find fault in it and not be in favor of it. That's just my opinion. And it's not personal. They're all good people. But I just think there's some sort of natural hesitation towards regionalization. Don't know what it is. Can't really put my finger on it. But I think in the back of a lot of people's heads in the school committee, they want it in theory. But I think when it comes down to it, I don't think they really would go for it.
Yeah, it's just amazing what an imaginary town line will do. I'm not trying to bring any ideas from the mainland over to Quinnipiac Island, but I went to this school in Coventry, and we traveled 45 minutes an hour to a high school every day. I grew up in Western Coventry, and the high school was 45 minutes away. You just think about Quinnipiac Island, you have 3 high schools within a 20-minute drive.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about merging schools with Ecuador or with, England. We're talking about merging schools with Middletown. We're on the same island. I mean, who in the world doesn't know or have family that lives in Middletown? I mean, we're essentially the same community. So it just doesn't make sense that we have this line going down by the 1 mile corner down to the Navy base, and anything on one side is bad and the other side is good. I mean, we're all the same community. It doesn't make any sense to me.
What other let me make sure I get that. Was there anything that happened over the last term or two that you're proud of or excited about?
I have to say, I'm on the tail end of a lot of 4-3-5-2 votes. I think what I am proud of is that despite all the chaos surrounding Rogers High School, that we are going to finish that building next year. The kids are going to be able to move in September. And I think that has been the elephant in the room for the past couple of years, or past few years, really. That goes back to my first term. It's been a challenge. And the people on the school building committee, I think, have worked hard. Obviously, and I think they would admit it, they've obviously made some mistakes. But we can't stop building the school. And there's people in the community that's still talking about, well, we got to stop. What do you mean we're going to stop? We're going to have a half-finished school down there. So that doesn't make any sense. So that's something that it has been the elephant in the room, but we are going to solve that, and that is going to be fixed, and the kids are going to be able to move into the school. And I think that one of the things that surprised me, and I know I mentioned it 2 years ago when I was running for office, I was surprised at the lack of authority, though, that the school committee had on that building. The decisions are made by the building committee, and they are an independent, autonomous body, and they make the decisions. And they come to us only if they have to get a contract signed, do we actually get involved. But at that point in time, it's really literally like put before us, and we were not involved in the decision-making process that led up to that. So it's an interesting concept. But that's something I think we've done the best we could under the circumstances. And I think once the kids move into the building, how we got there is going to kind of be in the past.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it went in front of school committee. But there's $10 million for Rogers and the $98.5 million bonds. It's for dirt pile, Rogers completion. Any thoughts on that part?
Yeah, that did not come before us. So that has really been between the building committee and the city council, the dirt pile. I mean, we've heard a lot about the dirt pile.
Too much.
But really, it's a city issue. And it's not like passing the buck over there, but it really is a city issue. But one of the other things I think, if we want, I can go back to answer the question about what of our successes in the past couple of years is our attendance has gotten a lot better. Coming out of COVID, attendance was terrible. So we actually, put our money where our mouth is. We hired 2 assistants for the Eddie Merritt, who is basically the truant officer, to help him go out and really focus on getting kids to school. And our attendance has got significantly better. And that is really the first step, I think, towards getting our test scores up and getting a culture and climate that works in the school. Because if the kids aren't in school, they're not learning. So that is, I think, the first step towards moving to getting, like I said, test scores up and getting a better feeling about the schools. And Eddie and his crew have done a great job.
I love Eddie. Eddie is, man, he is a person in the community everybody should know. He is. Yeah,
he's a good guy. He's a good guy. I've known him for 30 years. He used to be my neighbor.
Yeah, he's a good man.
But
kind of a personal question. What is your daughter thinking about the new school? How excited is she?
They are excited. My older daughter is going to be the first graduating class from there. So
yeah, I was doing the math in my head, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. She'll be in her senior year next year and going off to college. And my younger one, she'll be going into her sophomore year. But they're pretty excited. But it is interesting having kids in the system, because sometimes they'll hear me on. I remember a couple weeks ago they heard me on the phone. Excuse me. We were talking about banning cell phones, and I always think my daughters don't listen to me, but my daughter was in the other room, and I'm on the phone in the kitchen, and I see her walk in, and she puts her hands on her hips, and she's like what?
Yeah.
So she was. And after I hung up the phone, what do you mean you're going to ban cell phones? Dad, you can't do. So I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But that's, and I know other people have talked about it, Ryan, but that's on our horizon. And I hope soon. I mean, I'm in favor of taking the cell phones away. My kid's not going to talk to me for probably 6 months, but I think it's the way to go. I really do. It's so hard to enforce at the high school. Like right now, the current policy is they can have their phones in the hallway and they can have them at lunch. But once the door shuts, we've had meetings about this. The principal's like, when the door shuts and they're inside that classroom, I don't know what's going on in there. And it's very difficult for the teachers to police that. I don't want, and the teachers don't want to be, having to tell a kid every 5 minutes to put their phone away, while they're trying to teach a class. So I think, in my own personal opinion, the best solution is put the phones away. So they're going to be one of the proposals. And again, a lot of people saying, well, this has already been decided. No, it hasn't. We haven't voted on it yet. A proposal is to have them put their phones into a pouch. When they get into school, it locks, and then they carry that phone with them for the day, but it's inside the pouch and they can't use it. And then when they leave at the end of the day, they go buy a scanner, and then the scanner will open up the pouch, take the phone out, and they're good for the day. It's 6 hours. It's not the end of the world. I was talking to a buddy of mine from Dublin, and he said they did that in Ireland. They took the phones away from the kids, and the first month was rough. Kids didn't like it. And then after a while, the kids were like, you know what? This isn't that bad, because all of a sudden now they're talking at lunch. They're maybe paying attention to the teacher a little better. I don't really see a downside to it. I mean, I didn't have a cell phone when I was in school. My kids laugh at me because, they think we still had black and white TVs back then. Yeah. But it's not the end of the world if you don't have your cell phone for 6 hours. I mean, it really isn't. I mean, most of the feedback that we've gotten from our 2 workshops were very positive. So I'm in favor of it, even though it's going to be difficult for me at home. I think it's the right thing. And one thing I've tried to do when I make decisions is do what I think is right. And I think this is the right way to go. And I'd like to do it sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, with the attendance issues of the past, and hopefully they look like they're coming around, and I'll find some wood to knock on. But and then if you get the kids to school and they're distracted, well, what's the use of all that work of getting them to school if now
Right.
their brain isn't there? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and the other thing that we need to do coming up in the next term is we need to end this dispute. I mean, this has to end. And people say, well, how are you going to end it? And I think both sides need to sit down and you need to give a little. We're not going to solve this if everybody just says, nope, we're not going to negotiate. We're not going to give an inch. People have to give an inch. We need to get this put behind us. And I think that would help the morale of the teachers, because the teachers have a tough job. And I've always been supportive of them. Like I said, my dad was a teacher. Most of his friends were the teachers and administrators. I personally think that each side needs to give a little bit to get this done, get it behind us, and move on.
Help me understand, or help us all understand, how did we get here with the dispute? Some not incoming candidates. Some candidates have said, oh, well, it's because of the strategic plan the school committee passed, or it's a portrait of a graduate the school committee passed. Is school committee responsible for this dispute?
No, most people don't realize that what happened in, I think it was 2018 or 2019, the legislature passed a new law, basically, that took away a lot of the authority from the school committee. And, we don't hire, they took that away. We don't control what goes on in the school. We control the superintendent, and then we come up with a budget. That's basically, and we do policy. So those are the things that we do. I didn't realize it when I first got elected. I was shocked at how little authority we had in a lot of things. But we control the superintendent. So it's a superintendent that is negotiating and came up with this plan with the teachers that the teachers do not like. So it's really between the two of them. We do control the superintendent to the extent that, we're telling you, we need to get this solved. We need to get this solved. She's doing what she thinks is right. The teachers union is doing what they think is right. Like I said, both sides kind of need to meet a little bit in the middle and give a little to get this solved. One of the things that we voted on in the past year, this past term, we as a school committee actually do control employment contracts. So we can control employment contracts. And we voted 4-3 to give that authority away to the superintendent. And I was stunned. I was on the tail end of a 4-3 vote. I don't understand why any elected body would willingly give away its own authority, but we did. So the superintendent, again, she has that authority over employment contracts. So it's kind of interesting how it played out.
Can that be changed in the future?
Yes, if we get one more vote, we can have a 4-3 vote the other way and take control of the employment contracts back. But for now, we gave that away. We do not have it.
Do you think that's the best way to solve this issue?
I don't know if that was it's not going to specifically solve the issue, but it's certainly going to give us a little bit more control over what goes on in the school system for sure. But right now, this is going to go to arbitration, and I hope it goes to arbitration quickly. And like I said, we get this solved. I mean, I'm hearing whispers that it could be March before this is resolved. If going through an arbitration process. I wish there was an easier and quicker way, and I'm sure everybody does.
Yeah.
But the other thing, if I could just switch gears a little bit,
certainly
to the future and what's going to happen in the next term, and I know that other people running for school committee have talked about this, is we need to preserve programs at Rogers. The plan is in the new building to not have cosmetology or automotive in there. And what the plan is to send automotive over to maybe get some space on the Navy base to do it there. And the plan for cosmetology is to send them out to different salons throughout the city and do it there. I don't think that's a good plan at all. I would love to see us find the financing to put these back in the building, the new building at Rogers. Because one thing I haven't heard anybody mention is Middletown could put them in their new school. And then we would be sending our students, Cosmo and Automotive, to Middletown. And then Middletown, would be getting tuition payments from us. And on top of that, we would lose, I don't know, 30, 40 more kids. And our enrollment is already declining. And if enrollment declines even more, we're going to lose even more state aid. So that's something that we need to talk about. I mean, we should not be building a new school for the high school and cutting programs. So I'm going to, in my next term, do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen and somehow find financing to put those in the new school. Might not happen overnight.
Yeah. And for clarification, the only thing that's really holding those programs back from having a venue to be held is funding, right? There's not another decision. It's just money.
It's money. It's money. But it was supposed to be in the school. No, in the beginning, it wasn't in the school. Then it was put in the school, and then it was taken out of the school again. I know in the beginning, the state didn't want it. They weren't going to reimburse for it. And the state said, yeah, we will reimburse it. But then at that point, we run into all these cost escalations. So they had to take it out. And in full disclosure, my daughter is a freshman and she's in the cosmetology class. So she loves it. There are a lot of kids that even when I went to school that took cosmetology now own their own salons and they love it and they're doing very well. And I'm sure everybody who went to Rogers knows people that went through the automotive and cosmetology and are doing very well with their careers. So that's what we should be doing, because not everybody's going to go to college. We need to set these kids up for the future. So, like I said, let's try to solve this problem before maybe a state or a city like Middletown does with their new school. And then, like I said, we're sending our kids out there. That wouldn't make any sense.
What other problems or opportunities do you see ahead for the future?
Well, one of the problems that we have is we're going to hit a fiscal cliff. We just are. We're out of ESSER, right? We're out of ESSER money. Our reserve fund is down to less than $1 million. Next year's budget is going to be very difficult. There's going to be a lot of pain to go around, and the past budget that we did was relatively painful too. I actually voted against the budget because I didn't think that. I thought the pain should have been spread around a little more. It was really just on the teachers. I didn't think that was fair. So I did vote against the budget. But we need to figure out the financing, and there's going to be, like I said, a lot of pain to go around in this next budget too. And that's just the reality. And it's not just us. It's going to be a lot of school districts in the state are all going to be going through the same thing. And when we have to go to the city and ask them for money, that's what we do. So it'll be interesting to see with an election who's going to be on the city council, who's going to be on the school committee, and hopefully we can improve the relationship between the two bodies. Because no matter what, if you're going to them for money, there's always going to be friction. That's just the nature of it. So
everybody I've talked to on both sides over the last 2 weeks has agreed that the relationship has to improve. So I hope that after beginning November 6th, that it does. Whoever gets appointed December 1st, I hope they go in with improved relationship.
Well, I also think, and talked about it, during this interview, the elephant in the room is the school. So there's a lot of stress because we had to go to them, or the building committees had to go to them and ask for more money to finish the school. So once the school's finished, once we're in there and it's done, and all this is behind us, I think just by the very nature of that, the relationship's going to get better. But we have to also go to them with a realistic budget. I mean, there's people on the school committee that go and say, no, our job is to go and ask for the absolute most money. Well, every time we do that, we don't get it. So why not say, this is what we really need? And I think they would have more respect for us when we come to them and say, this is what we need, and this is why we need it, as opposed to, we're just going to come in and you have to pay us the max because the schools are important and you have to do it. Well, that's not good.
Yeah.
Right away, the hair in the back of their neck stands up and they're on the defensive. So, I've always said that. Let's go to them with a realistic budget. And then I think our relationship will start to improve. And again, like I said, I think it has nowhere to go up after Rogers is finished and we're not going to them or building committee's not going to them asking for more money.
Let's wow, time is flying by. Let's wrap up with what you bring to the school committee, why people should put a dot next to your name in the upcoming election.
Well, like I said before, Ryan, I'm pretty level-headed. I bring common sense to the table. If something makes sense, I vote for it. If something doesn't make sense, I'll vote against it. You know, I'm passionate about the schools. I care about the schools. I think I've brought a lot to the table in my last 4 years, and we have a lot of challenges coming up in the future, and we need people that are, you know, intelligent, and we need people that are, you know, even-keeled, and we need people that have common sense, and because there's going to be a lot of big decisions that are coming up in the future. And, you know, like I said, I have a vested interest. Not only, you know, am I a dad who has 2 kids at Rogers and, you know, they're in the system, but I'm also a taxpayer. So I see both ends of the equation. I get it. You know, I don't bring in like a national ideology to the school committee. I just bring common sense from a local resident who wants to make the schools the best that they can be. Because like I said, there's a lot of positive things going on in the school system. Unfortunately, you just don't hear about it. But if there's something bad, all of a sudden it's all over. It's on the front page of you know, every website and every newspaper. But this we get a lot. We have a long way to go, but we have a lot of good things happening. So I hope you know, on November 5th you can vote for me. I'm at the bottom, number 10.
Okay.
So I hope that you put a little check next to my name. I'd appreciate it, and I'll do the best I can.
Excellent. Contact information if people want to reach out, ask you about your campaign, ask you about anything, school committee.
Best way to reach me is you can call me or text me. My cell phone's 401-662-1149. My email is jadring_2000@yahoo.com. And anybody, feel free to reach out anytime.
Excellent. It's kind of funny that our cell phones are pretty darn close to each other. It's close. I'm 662-1653. So it's close. But yeah. James, want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for serving on the school committee. Thank you for running again. I've been saying it to all the candidates. I hope that once this is over, everybody has some good ideas. And I think everybody's doing it for the right reason. Hopefully everybody can get together and see how to move the next committee forward the best way possible.
I appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you very much.
All right. That is James Dring running for Newport School Committee. He is an incumbent. Early voting starts on Wednesday, October 16th, less than a week away. And then general election is on Tuesday, November 5th. Visit vote.ri.gov to view a sample ballot where you can see where you're going to vote, to make sure you're registered, to see all of your candidates for city council, school committee, other races, as well as the bond question. You can do all of that on vote.ri.gov. If you missed any portion of this conversation, want to watch it again, want to share it, want to compare and contrast the 11 candidates for Newport School Committee, interviews, stories, podcasts, all available on whatsupnewp.com. Thanks for watching.
you.